Hello, Sixers. This is a quick video to kind of go through the sort of the guidance things I would have done with you this week if we were lucky enough to have class. What I'd like to cover is talk a little bit about the SUSI grant. I know this time of year I get a lot of questions about that. A small bit about accommodation and scholarships. I'd like to talk about just a few tips to cope with the current situation. Some, I suppose, ideas around study about how to study over the course of the next week. So first of all, let's start off with the SUSI grant. SUSI grant probably came in around 2009, 2010. I kind of remember it. I was a few years a guidance counsellor before it came in, and grants were a mess beforehand, because if you went to, say, somewhere like Cavan Institute or an IT, you had to apply for your local VC for a grant to go to those institutions. But if you're applying to go to a university, you used to apply to a county council, your own county council. So understandably that there was, say, 26 county councils around Ireland and 26 VCs, or probably more than that. It was very, very onerous task that wasn't very efficient. So the government, they set up an organisation called SUSI to organise all grants. So SUSI is an acronym, stands for Student Universal Support Ireland, and they cover grants, whether it's a PLC or if it's an undergraduate, postgraduate, or outside the Republic grants. They cover everything. So it's a much easier process to apply, and I'll talk a little bit about it now. So all the information is on susi.ie. That's susi.ie. We haven't come to the opening date yet. So on their website, they say April. It was the 5th of April, but now it's just saying April 2020. And with everything that's going on, I'd be very surprised if you'd be able to apply for the SUSI grant by early April. But that's where it'll be notified. It will be the SUSI website. So at the moment, you can apply in April 2020. In the menu section, they have a drop-down menu, and in there are the SUSI information videos. So you can watch a couple of different videos that show you how to apply for the SUSI grant and the benefits of it. Probably the most useful feature of the website at the moment is just the pre-questionnaire. So you can fill out quite quickly a questionnaire that will say whether or not it's worth your while applying for the grant or not. The grant application, there's a lot more work to it, but this questionnaire, eligibility questionnaire it's called, is you'll probably be able to fill it out in 5 minutes, and it'll tell you if you should apply for the grant or not. So it's an amazing thing. Like, the grant is, I think last year there was 17 different types of grants. So depending on the number of family dependents and the family income. But the full grant would be, you wouldn't pay for student registration fees, which if it's for an IT or university would be €3,000. And you'll also get money towards the cost of living. So it really makes it more manageable for people to go to college, and it's if you can get it, it's well worth applying for. If your family earns a little bit more, you might get the student fees paid for you, but you mightn't get maintenance. Or if your family earns a little bit more, you might get half fees. So it very much depends, because there's 17 different types of grant. There was last year. It very much depends on what you earn, as in how much you get. But all the information is on the website susi.ie, and it's really worthwhile checking out. A lot of other questions I get this time of year will be relating to accommodation and scholarships. Now, both of those are very much dependent on the individual colleges, and a lot of colleges might be shut for students, but a lot of staff could still be in working either at home or actually in the college. I know I have two friends who who work in DCU, and they're still in working, just the students aren't. So actually, if you had a query or a question of the college, they probably would be very well placed to get back to you. If not in person, on the telephone, by email, and likewise with accommodation, it can be, right now some colleges ask people to register for on-campus accommodation. It doesn't mean that there's not other types of accommodation available. Just right now, when people are talking about, they're either talking about student purpose-built student accommodation, which is a new thing, like in the cities, where it's a accommodation for students that's not linked to the colleges. And then there's the on-campus student accommodation, where the college owns and the college regulates. Right now, some of the colleges will allow you to register your interest in the on-campus accommodation. It's very, there will be a very high standard of accommodation, but they are generally the most expensive. It is quite convenient because you don't need to organise someone to move in with. So it's quite attractive for some first year students, in terms of that they can organise it for themselves and the college does the rest. So you might expect to move in with other first years, and then after first year you might be better placed to move out to maybe more affordable private accommodation afterwards. So likewise, there are lots of different options, but the on-campus option, at the moment, some of the colleges are asking people to register their interest. Scholarships, likewise, I think there's over 600 different scholarships between all the different colleges. Some scholarships you're automatically in for, in terms of, if you get, likewise, DCU, I believe, do a scholarship that's the highest leaving cert from your school. To go to DCU, you'll get a scholarship, while at Maynooth, they do a scholarship, I think, for anyone who gets over 500 points. So they kind of vary from year to year. Some scholarships you're automatically in for. So like the JP McManus, that's the highest, for someone who has a medical card who gets the highest leaving cert in their county. The JP McManus, they're automatically entered into that. While the Naughton Scholarship is a very famous one, will be the top science student in the county who's doing a science-based course. So likewise, the deadlines for that are, they're all kind of this term, and but they're very much on an individualized basis. So if you had any questions about any of them, I suppose you could ask me, send me an email, and I could follow up best I can. Just right now is a time for both accommodation and scholarships, is to familiarise yourself with the deadlines and say, well, look, this has to be applied for by the 1st of May, or this has to be applied for by April. And then you can put a plan in place with how to do that. And if I can be of any help, please, I know you'd have my email. It's kevinclark@lorettocavan.ie, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I suppose I'd like to go through a few tips to cope with the unprecedented situation. And it really is, I'd say a lot of people around the country are asking, like, why is this happening? Why is it happening now? And it really is an awful situation for people who are maybe have health conditions, or older people, or it's an awful situation for leaving certs, particularly with the uncertainty of it. And I suppose I'd like to go through a few tips that to help you cope with the situation, but it's very much trying to make the best of a difficult situation, and it definitely isn't easy. One thing I heard in the news about maybe a 2020 approach to potentially give yourself 20 minutes to inform yourself of what's going on, and then maybe 20 minutes to discuss with someone about it. Because likewise, if you want to read about COVID-19 or the coronavirus, you can do it 24/7, but you'll find yourself with high levels of anxiety and find yourself potentially getting overwhelmed. So I think it could be the 6 o'clock news, or it could be the 9 o'clock, or it could be a particular website. I think if you set aside 20 minutes to just familiarize yourself with what's going on, and then to process that, maybe talk to someone for another 20 minutes, trying to make some sort of sense of it. And that might be enough, because it's pretty impactful, the stuff that's going on, and 20 minutes is enough to process. And if you could, like, we've all our phones are complete news feeds. Try steer clear of looking at, say, articles on your phone, because there'll be one after another, and you'll never get through them. And some of them, like, I know I read today, a cousin of mine, she forwarded on information about not to take Nurofen, and just if you get COVID-19, it's harmful. And then 2 hours later, another cousin said that was a hoax, that that's Dr. Tim doesn't even exist. So just at least if you watch the news, it's from a verified source, that you can send over the information, and it's in the Irish context. So that's what I try and recommend. Likewise, home is the safest space for everybody. And I think one thing is, I suppose, been repeated a few times before I left Loreto, but everyone's in the same boat. So if you feel like, natural to feel like, why has this happened to me? Why is this happening right now? Try to remind yourself that all Leaving Certs in Ireland are in the same boat. Like, so for the next 9 school days, everyone would have been off St. Patrick's Day. A lot of schools wouldn't be in school on Monday anyway. So for all we know, for the next 9 school days, everyone in Ireland won't be in school and be trying to do their best working at home. And like, I've corrected the Leaving Cert and the Junior Cert a few times, that if, for example, the results come in slightly worse, performance is slightly worse in the Leaving Cert, they adjust it with a slightly easier marking scheme. So you generally get the same number of grades, H1s, H2s, every year. So I don't expect the average Leaving Cert to go down, because the trend over the years has been going up slightly, and I don't think any reason that the same won't happen this year. But it's just a watch and brief. But if you do find yourself getting a bit anxious about it, just remind yourself, everyone is doing the Leaving Cert this year, is pretty much in the same boat. So just to reaffirm yourself with that, and try and, I suppose, focus on what's in your control. And that way you start to kind of work through some of the stuff, and hopefully you start to make a little bit of progress. And focus on what's in your control can take a little bit more anxiety away and take the frustration out of it. If you focus on what's outside of your control, that will probably heighten your levels of frustration and further your anxiety. Other tips to cope, I suppose, I know I said this already, big shout out for showering. It's a really good way to start the day. I don't think anyone regrets like showering. Like, that day was going great until I had a shower. It was really so it's only a small thing, but small things do matter. So if you can try and get up with your parents, try and have a shower, try and do something that regulates your energy. Because if you, like, getting up and out for school creates an intensity that makes you wake up. Like, if you just get up on a Saturday and you don't have much to do, or you have a lot of time to do whatever you need to get done, you can feel very, very tired. So getting something like shower, going out for a walk, doing something that, I suppose, regulates your energy, that gets you into the headspace to start your work, I think will really help. Now is probably not a bad time to try and, like, think about what's in your control. Something I think everyone can do is try, I suppose, connect a little bit more to nature. I went out for a walk today. I've gone on a good few walks since school has stopped, and it really can, it's moderate exercise, it's refreshing, it can kind of, something you can do, and kind of spending maybe a half an hour either like in a park or in your garden or out for a walk. You can still keep your distance from people, but it makes you feel like you've got out of the house and you come back, and the sameness is slightly different. A few little tips with study, and it's how to make the best of an unstructured environment. I would worry, like teachers have set up Teams and emailing and OneNote, and you could maybe get all that work all at once and feel like you've got this massive mountain. And it's not what teachers want. I suppose they want to help to provide a structure to give you some practical work to do. So I hope you don't feel overwhelmed with the amount of work that comes through. And it's not meant to be all done in one day. Feel free to spread this video out, over the course of the week. I won't mind. But what I would say with study is that if you target to get maybe a 2-hour block of study done before lunchtime, it totally changes the way you feel about the day, because you've done something concrete and then you're adding to that. And that first study block is going to be the best quality, because the more you study in a given day, the tired you get and the harder it is to concentrate. So even the chances are, if you start before lunchtime and get maybe 2 hours done, you're going to feel that was good study and that you have gone a long way to get the amount of study that you've done. And it's important to I feel like, have a manageable goal. Like, I think something potentially like 3 sets of 2 hours might be manageable, or maybe 2 sets of 2 hours with 1 hour, 1 hour beyond that. Like, it is very difficult. Like, studying on your own, if done properly, is very intense, and it's a lot more efficient than like a school day where you're moving from class to class and have your lunchtime, you have your breaks, and you're getting books in and out of your locker. It's very intense, and I wouldn't want you thinking I can do 10 hours a day now, and that'd be setting yourself up for a loss. I think if you started now tomorrow, if you were to do, say, 5 hours really good work, that would be a successful day, because you have to think that 6th hour mightn't be that great a quality. So I suppose it's a little bit about making sure that you work consistently rather than pitching the bar too high, then feeling like you haven't met that bar, and then you feel bad about what you've done. So I mentioned in school about targeting Monday. I think if you target that first 2-hour session before lunchtime, so if you do 2 hours with small breaks in between. Now, when you take a small break in, say, a 2-hour session, it's really important to stay in the zone of work, that you're getting up, maybe you're having a glass of water, you're coming back down. You're not trying to take a 10-minute break where you're to use your motivation to get back to work. So just, I suppose, try that. I think, and if you can keep the phone at arm's distance, I think that would really help. Looking at the structure of your study might be given initially with doing the work the teacher set. If you're doing your own study, try and vary what you do. Like, it's very difficult to study the one way for a long amount of time. So think about how you study. Maybe you could start off writing notes, and then the next thing you might do something like maybe you're too tired to do anything else, you could read those notes into your phone. So, and then maybe you might be able to listen to them later when you're on a walk or something like that. If you're finding your energy levels dipping, try and vary the way you study, because that might help your concentration as well. That's pretty much everything I pretty much set to cover. I'll hopefully think about the guidance needs and the types of things that we do in this time, and do another video. It would be lovely, I would say, if you could structure your study where you give yourself the whole evening off, would be nice, and where you might get a chance to do some exercise or kind of chill out and really unwind. I know I'm watching Netflix. If you have Netflix, it can be really good, but don't watch. I'm watching a little bit of A Quiet Place. That's the worst thing you possibly could watch right now. So try and watch something that, I don't know, Stranger Things, something that's quite escapism. If you have seen, probably seen Stranger Things, it's very nice. If you like your history, called War and Peace. It's kind of set in the Napoleonic era in Russia. It's kind of one of those period dramas, and it might help history students. Maybe going to bed, maybe listen to some music at night time, or try and unwind before you go to bed. Maybe read a small amount or listen to nice music. If you have ways of playing it, I think it's on YouTube. It's Tom Waits. It's a famous enough guy, but his first album is a lovely going to bed album. It's called Closing Time. Might be worth having a listen to and let you relax going to bed. So if there's any questions, you can email me and about your own personal queries. I've had 1 or 2 emails already, so feel free to email me and I'll get back to you, and I'll think about the guidance needs throughout the week, and I'll try and post another video. Best of luck with it. Thank you.